My parents didn't pay a single dollar for my tuition. When I asked why, my mom scoffed. Your sister has a future. You're not worth it. Just then my sister's phone lit up. Full tuition payment confirmed. She smirked. Spending money on you would be a waste. Silently, I packed my bags and left. Days later, my parents faced their biggest regret. In a quiet residential neighborhood in the suburbs of Nashville, Tennessee, the Johnson family lived in a 2-story house surrounded by a white fence. On the surface, they appeared to be the ideal middle-class family, but the reality inside was more complicated. Melody Johnson sat by the window, looking at the sunset falling over the garden while focusing on her piano sheet music. Her long brown hair was casually pulled back, and she had rolled up the sleeves of her blue sweater. She had been blessed with talent for piano and singing since she was young. She had won local music competitions many times, and her high school music teacher had called her a natural talent. From the living room she could hear her mother's high-pitched laughter and her sister's voice. Another family time that excluded her had begun. Ashley, Margaret was envious when she saw your college entrance ceremony photos. She said, "The Johnson family must be so proud." Melody's mother, Martha, had been a teacher at the local elementary school for 20 years before retiring to focus on her daughter's education. She always maintained a slim, straight-backed posture, and her hair, now beginning to turn gray, was always neatly tied back. Her life revolved around appearances and what others think. "Mom, I had an anatomy class on my first day of medical school, and it was challenging. But the professor said my question showed excellent insight," said Ashley Johnson. Ashley Johnson had perfectly styled blonde hair and sharp eyes inherited from her mother. She had been selected as the valedictorian in high school and had just entered a prestigious medical school in the state. She was the apple of her parents' eyes, especially her mother's. "That's my Ashley, perfect for becoming a doctor. Harold, did you hear? Your daughter was praised by her professor." Harold, relaxing on the sofa in the living room, had worked as a manager at a local company for over 20 years. Having led an ordinary life, he was under the strong influence of his wife Martha, and his say in family matters was limited. "That's wonderful," he replied without looking up from his newspaper. Melody let out a small sigh. In this house, her music was dismissed as a hobby and never taken seriously. When graduating from high school, Melody had received scholarship offers from prestigious music schools, but her parents had pressured her to choose a practical career. "Do you think you can make a living with music? It's fine to dream, but you need to face reality," Martha had said. In the end, Melody enrolled in the music department of the local public university, managing her tuition through a combination of scholarships and part-time jobs. Now a junior in college, she paid for her living expenses and tuition by performing at a local jazz bar and working at a cafe. Meanwhile, her sister Ashley had just entered a renowned private medical school in the state, with her parents paying the substantial tuition in full. On Melody's desk lay a pile of unpaid bills. The deadline for next semester's tuition was approaching, and this time it seemed she wouldn't be able to manage on her own. The cafe had reduced its hours due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and her shifts had been cut. "Maybe just this once, I should ask Dad and Mom for help," Melody thought. She had never asked for tuition assistance before. Tonight was a dinner to celebrate Ashley's college entrance. It might be a good opportunity with the whole family gathered. Melody took a deep breath and closed her sheet music. "Why am I so nervous about just asking about tuition?" she wondered as she left her room and began descending the stairs. She could still hear the cheerful conversation between her mother and sister coming from the living room. The Johnson family dining room was filled with warm lighting and the aroma of food. The table was set with roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and Ashley's favorite chocolate cake. A handmade banner reading, "Congratulations on medical school," adorned the wall. "Everyone, please take your seats. Let's celebrate Ashley's special day," Martha said with a smile. She had purchased a new dress for today and had just had her hair done at the salon. Harold poured red wine into the glasses and said, "A doctor from our family. The neighbors will be amazed." His voice carried a rare note of pride. Ashley smiled and said, "This is just the beginning, Dad. But I promise I'll become a respectable doctor and bring honor to our family." She was dressed in a new designer dress with a pendant bearing her university's logo around her neck. Melody quietly took her seat and smiled. "Congratulations, Ashley," she said, trying to suppress the uneasiness in her chest. The folded bill in her pocket felt like it was digging into her skin. As the meal progressed, the family conversation flowed. Melody mostly listened, occasionally nodding. While poking at her mashed potatoes with her fork, she was trying to figure out when to bring up her issue. "The other day, my professor said something interesting," Ashley began. "He said medical students suffer from sleep deprivation, so we should get plenty of sleep now, but I'm too excited to sleep." Martha touched her daughter's cheek and said gently, "Don't push yourself too hard. Health comes first. Let me know if you need anything." "This is it," Melody thought. Taking a deep breath, she began. "I have something to discuss." Suddenly, all eyes were on her, and she felt the atmosphere change. "It's about next semester's tuition." She took the bill out of her pocket. "My shifts at the cafe have been reduced, and my scholarship alone isn't enough." Martha's expression clouded. "Tuition again? You've always managed on your own, haven't you?" She sighed. "Isn't that the path you chose? But this time it's a bit difficult." Melody unfolded the bill. "I'm short by $2,000. I've tried to get more work, but no one is hiring right now." Harold remained silent, his eyes fixed on his newspaper. His fingers were twitching slightly on the table. "When you said you would major in music, we anticipated this would happen," Martha said coldly. "We advised you to choose a practical major." Melody spoke quietly. "Music is my passion. And I've never asked for help before, have I?" At that moment, Ashley's smartphone rang, and she quickly picked it up. "Oh, an email from the university," she said, looking at the screen. Melody glanced at Ashley and caught a glimpse of the message on the screen. The words "full tuition payment completed," and an amount more than 10 times what she needed caught her eye. Ashley's eyes sparkled with joy. "Dad, Mom, thank you. The tuition payment has been completed." Melody froze. She looked at her parents and asked, "You're paying Ashley's tuition in full?" Her voice was trembling. A moment of silence. "Of course," Martha answered as if it were obvious. "Medical school is special. It's an investment in the future." "Why?" Melody said in a hoarse voice. "Why only me?" Martha put down her fork and wiped her mouth with a napkin. Her eyes were cold. "Your sister has a future. Becoming a doctor will bring honor to the family. There's no value in spending money on you." Those words pierced Melody's heart like an ice knife. The sense of alienation she had felt all along was now explicitly confirmed by her mother. She turned to look for her father's eyes, but Harold remained silent, only reaching for his wine glass. Ashley snorted with displeasure and sneered, "Isn't it a waste to spend money on you, sis? Do you really think you can become a pianist? Which do you think contributes more to society, a doctor or a musician?" An icy silence spread throughout the room. Melody slowly stood up and put the folded bill back in her pocket. Her blue eyes were moist with tears, but she refused to let them fall. "I understand," was all she said before leaving the room. Climbing the stairs to her room, Melody opened her closet and pulled out a large backpack. Suppressing her emotions, she packed only the bare essentials, clothes, valuables, and her most precious piano sheet music. Outside the window, it was dark, and rain had begun to fall. Melody looked around her room. The room she had lived in since childhood. There were some certificates from music competitions on the walls, but not a single family photo. Shouldering her backpack, she paused in front of the piano. She touched the keys with her fingertips, saying a silent goodbye. Then she left a note on her desk. "I will prove my own worth." Melody quietly descended the stairs, heading for the front door without being noticed. From the dining room she could hear Ashley talking about her college life and her parents' laughter. They didn't seem to have noticed her absence. When she opened the door and stepped out into the rain, Melody didn't look back. In her heart, a vow was burning. "I'll show them. I'll prove my worth." On that rainy night, Melody walked through downtown Nashville. She had just one backpack and a little cash. Her phone showed no messages from her parents, only a concerned message from Eleanor Wilson, her old classical music teacher. "Come to my house tomorrow morning. Stay at a hotel tonight," Eleanor had written. In a cheap motel room, Melody stared out the window at the rain, reflecting on her choices. Continuing university was now impossible. She couldn't pay next semester's tuition, and after her parents had so blatantly denied her value, she couldn't rely on them anymore. The next morning, when she visited Eleanor's home, the former music teacher welcomed her warmly. I won't let your talent go to waste, Eleanor said. I know of an apartment with a vacant room. The rent is affordable. And I know the owner of a cafe in town, so I can help you find a job. Melody grasped her teacher's hand with tears in her eyes. How can I ever thank you? No thanks needed. Repay me with your music. From that day, Melody's new life began. Her small studio apartment was modest, but it was her own space. Eleanor helped her negotiate access to a practice piano at a local music studio after her morning shifts at the cafe. And in the evenings, she secured a job playing piano at a downtown jazz bar called Blue Note. Dropping out of college was a setback, but Melody continued to study music theory on her own. Using old textbooks and sheet music from Eleanor, as well as online courses, she honed her skills at her own pace. Your playing gets better every day, said the owner of Blue Note. We're getting more customers too. Your original songs are especially popular. Every night, in the dim lighting of the jazz bar, Melody transformed her emotions into music. Anger, disappointment, and new determination all flowed through her fingers into the music. One evening, a regular customer approached her. That was a wonderful performance. Your original pieces particularly resonated with me, said the man, who introduced himself as Marcus Reed, a music producer. Have you ever uploaded videos of your performances to social media? Following that conversation, Melody began recording her compositions on her smartphone and uploading them to social media. At first, she had only a few dozen viewers, but when she posted a song titled Ivalu, everything changed. The song was a moving piano ballad born from her experiences with her family. Though there were no lyrics, the emotions Melody poured into each note were palpable. Within a week of posting, the video exceeded 500,000 views, and the comment section was filled with reactions like "This touched my heart and I couldn't stop crying." Marcus called her 10 days after the video was posted. Melody, your talent is real. Would you like to sign with our label? 1 year later, Melody's debut single Ivalu was released. Though it was a simple song centered around piano and vocals, her transparent voice and heart-touching melody capture the hearts of many. The lyrics "Know Your Own Worth" particularly resonated with young women. Melody's song ranked high on the US charts, and the music video was viewed millions of times. When her debut album was released, Melody was asked in a music magazine interview, "Tell us about your music education." She quietly replied, "I am self-taught. I didn't have family support, but I had a wonderful mentor and the courage to believe in myself." To the question, "How does your family feel about your success?" she only smiled. "I think my music speaks for itself." 3 years after Melody left home, she was 24 and had released her second album. A nationwide tour schedule was announced, including a performance in Nashville. It would be her homecoming concert. A local TV station broadcast an interview with Melody titled "Nashville Songstress Returns Home," featuring her success story. "How did your family support your musical journey?" the host asked. Melody's expression tightened for a moment before she displayed a gentle smile. "I reached my current position through my own efforts. I'm grateful to my mentor and friends who supported me, but family matters are private." Viewers couldn't grasp the hidden meaning behind those words. But in a small house in Nashville, Martha and Harold Johnson were frozen by their daughter's words. "What a way to put it," Martha murmured. "We're her parents." Harold sank silently into his chair. Since the day she left home, he had called her many times, but Melody never responded. Their lives had gradually changed. Ashley's medical school tuition was unexpectedly high, rapidly depleting their savings. Furthermore, Harold's company was performing poorly, and pay cuts had begun. On the day of the concert, the large venue in Nashville was packed. Tickets had sold out within hours of going on sale. Martha, Harold, and Ashley were seated not in the front row but slightly behind the center. They had contacted Melody's manager to arrange special tickets. The stage darkened, and a single spotlight illuminated the piano. When Melody appeared, the venue erupted in thunderous applause. She smiled at the audience and sat at the piano. "Today is a special day. I'm happy to be back in my hometown." Her gentle voice resonated throughout the venue. "The first song is the one that started my journey." Her fingers touched the piano keys, and the first notes of Ivalu began to flow. The audience listened in rapt silence. When the song ended, Melody scanned the audience. For a moment, her eyes lingered on where her family was sitting. A reunion, after 3 years. Her expression didn't change, but she felt her heart beating faster. The next song is new. No one has heard it yet, she said into the microphone. It's called No Value. I dedicate it to those who couldn't see my worth. The piano melody resonated through the venue, quietly yet powerfully. Melody's voice joined in, with emotion wrung from her soul imbued in every lyric. You said I had no value, but I knew who I truly was. Now the world is listening to my voice, the voice you refused to hear. Some in the audience were moved to tears. The song continued. As she sang, Melody looked toward where her family was sitting. Martha's lips were tightly sealed, Harold was looking down, and only Ashley seemed restless, looking around. Here I stand, on my own feet. The world has given me the love you didn't. Now I am free, and I have value. When the song ended, the venue was enveloped in silence before erupting in explosive applause. The audience gave her a standing ovation. She bowed deeply, and then smiled. For the first time, it was a smile from the heart. After the concert, the enthusiastic audience gradually left the venue. Melody was still basking in the afterglow of excitement and emotion, receiving congratulations from staff in her dressing room. Her manager, Samantha, wore a broad smile. You were wonderful, Melody. Especially the new song, it gave me goosebumps, Samantha said, embracing her shoulders. Melody smiled while drinking from a bottle of water. Thank you. Singing in this city felt special. Samantha leaned towards Melody and whispered, You know, outside, your family is waiting. They want to see you. Melody's hand stopped. She slowly put down the water bottle and composed herself. I understand. If you don't want to see them, you can refuse, Samantha said worriedly. She had heard fragments of Melody's past. No, I'll see them, Melody answered firmly. It's a moment I have to face eventually. When Samantha opened the door, there stood Martha, Harold, and Ashley. 3 years had passed, and they had changed somewhat. Martha's hair had completely turned gray, and Harold looked thinner and more tired. Ashley was still beautiful, but there were dark circles under her eyes, and her once confident smile was gone. Melody. Martha stepped forward. Her voice was trembling. That was a wonderful performance. We're proud of you. Melody stood up to face them. Her expression was calm, but her eyes coolly observed them. Thank you. But that's quite a different attitude from 3 years ago. Martha was at a loss for words, and Harold stepped forward. Melody, we wanted to see you. We called many times, but Melody spoke quietly, 12 times in the first month. None after that. Where were you when I needed you? A heavy silence dominated the room. Ashley stared fixedly at the floor. We're family, Martha began to speak again. We want to reconcile. The house has been so empty without you. Melody gave a small laugh. It was a cold laugh. Family? A real family doesn't give everything to one child while telling the other they have no value. At that time, I said it for your own good, Martha said apologetically. I just wanted to teach you the harsh reality, that the path of music is difficult. Melody shook her head. If you had really been thinking of me, you would have supported me. You wouldn't have made a difference in how you paid for our tuition. Harold heaved a deep sigh. We were wrong. I admit it. But people can change. Won't you give us another chance? Melody stared at them intently. She sensed something different in her parents' expressions. Why do you want to reconcile now? After 3 years? Martha and Harold exchanged glances. Then Ashley spoke for the first time. Sis. Her voice lacked the previous arrogance and sounded somehow weak. I dropped out of medical school. Melody raised her eyebrows in surprise. Dropped out? But you were. I couldn't continue, Ashley said, still looking down. The pressure was too great. But before I dropped out, I had already taken out loans for 3 years' worth of tuition. Now the truth became clear. Melody calmly asked, What's the situation with Dad and Mom? Silence fell again. Harold spoke up. I was laid off from the company. Martha also retired. The mortgage payments are becoming difficult. And you were the guarantors for Ashley's student loans. Melody understood the situation. Martha said tearfully, You've become successful. Won't you help us a little as our daughter? Ashley suddenly spoke in a bright voice. I'm so glad you became famous, sis. I always listen to your songs. I especially love A Value. Those words stirred anger in Melody's heart. she calmly asked. Anyone else? Has anyone else tried to contact me? Martha hesitantly answered. Aunt Carol wants your contact information. And Cousin James, too. When I became successful, suddenly everyone became interested in me, Melody said sarcastically. Because we're family, Martha pleaded. Family members help each other, don't they? Melody slowly stood up and gazed at the night view outside the window. Then she turned back and said, Interesting. When I was struggling to find $2,000 for tuition, I was told I had no value. But now that you're in trouble, family members help each other? Harold looked up. Please forgive us. Forgiving and helping are separate issues, Melody said. How much is your student loan? Ashley opened her mouth. $150,000 plus interest, Melody said calmly. I'm not family anymore. You taught me that. But, Melody, Martha said tearfully. Collectors call almost every day. We might lose our house. Just as I had no value, there's no value in helping you, Melody said slowly and clearly. Then she looked at Samantha and nodded slightly. Samantha opened the door to the room and said, It's time. Melody has another appointment. Martha stood speechless with an incredulous expression. You weren't such a cold person. People change, Melody said with irony. You taught me that, didn't you? Ashley's expression suddenly changed to anger. In the end, you just want revenge. You just want to show us up. Melody smiled calmly. No, I just wanted to prove my own worth. I've already achieved that. Harold sighed and took Martha and Ashley by the arm. Let's go. Melody has no obligation to help us. As the three headed for the door, Melody said one last thing. Let me give you one piece of advice. A person's worth isn't in their title or degree. Find the passion within yourself. After the door closed, Melody collapsed into a chair. Emotions she had suppressed for a long time suddenly flooded out, and she quietly shed tears. Samantha said nothing, just sat beside her and put an arm around her shoulders. Any regrets? Samantha gently asked after a while. Melody wiped away her tears and shook her head. No, this was the right decision. They didn't need me, they just needed my money. She stood up and faced the mirror. Looking at her reflection, Melody took a deep breath. A new life has begun, with people who understand my true value. That night, looking down at the city lights from her hotel window in Nashville, Melody began writing lyrics for a new song. It wasn't about anger or sadness, but about the joy of finding one's own worth. The Grammy Award for Best Vocal Album goes to Melody Johnson for True Value. On the glamorous stage in Los Angeles, Melody stood up, taking a deep breath. Applause and cheers from the audience enveloped her. In her eyes were clear confidence and composure. I dedicate this award to everyone who continued to believe in my worth, she said, holding up the trophy. And today, I have a special announcement. I'm announcing the establishment of the True Value Foundation. The next day, music industry magazines featured her foundation prominently. Under the philosophy that talented young people should not give up their dreams due to financial reasons, Melody decided to dedicate part of her income to scholarships for young musicians. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Tennessee, Martha Johnson was changing into her uniform for the local supermarket. Harold's house had been foreclosed, and they had moved to a cramped apartment. We got another call from that debt collector today, Harold said, sitting on the sofa. Deep fatigue was visible on his face. They said we need to restructure our repayment plan. Martha stared at her tired face in the mirror and sighed. I'll have to work for another 10 years. At this age, Ashley was preparing for an interview for her second part-time job. After dropping out of medical school, she juggled multiple jobs to repay her debts. Opening social media on her smartphone, she saw Melody's latest post. Her sister's smiling face accepting the Grammy Award. Sis, Ashley whispered to the screen. Can't we let bygones be bygones? She began writing a message. After rewriting it several times, she finally pressed send. Congratulations. Can you forgive what happened in the past? There was no reply. A few weeks later, television broadcast the first scholarship award ceremony of the True Value Foundation. On stage, Melody stood alongside young musicians, handing certificates to each one. I want to tell you all something, she said, holding the microphone. Even if your family doesn't understand you, even if those around you deny your value, never ever give up pursuing your passion. You have value. No one can take that away from you. In front of the TV, Martha, Harold, and Ashley silently listened to those words. Ashley's smartphone rang, and a notification appeared on the screen. Notice of student loan late payment fee incurred. Martha was quietly crying. What have we done? Something irreversible, Harold answered, gazing out the window. Ashley stared at Melody on the TV, the strength and kindness in her sister's eyes. She knew that it would never reach her again. On the TV, Melody smiled and said, "Value is not something given to you, it's something you create yourself. That's the most important lesson I've learned."